Hey guys, this is PODFIC, and today we're going to be reading Revived Publicly by Orphan Account. This is Chapter 7. A hospital. Maybe Batcave? Monitor, beeping in Jason's ear, was the first thing he recognized when he began to regain consciousness. Wasn't that strangely reminiscent? Again, he didn't know which option he preferred. He cracked an eye open, breaking the suspense. Batcave it was. Jason really didn't know how to feel about that. On one hand, he avoided the hospital with its annoying staff and pushy paparazzi who'd been waiting outside. On the other hand, well, Bruce. Speaking of whom, the man was sitting beside his bed. Dark circles resting beneath his eyes and waves of exhaustion were practically radiating off the man. Now, Jason doubted he was in any kind of position to pass judgment, but considering the mere fact that his father had still failed to notice that Jason was awake, he was clearly off terribly. "You paid the ransom?" Jason finally asked, if simply to break the silence. It was a vague memory he had, something his captors had maybe whispered to him. All of his memories were still blurry. All he clearly remembered was the hopelessness he had felt, the fear that his father would fail him again. "I did," Bruce answered, turning to look at Jason. The sad expression mixed with the hunched-over posture unnerved Jason. It wasn't like his father to show weakness before him. It wasn't like him to show vulnerability in any sense. "Why? They were amateurs, and that's me being kind," Jason joked, hoping to avoid whatever lecture Bruce would no doubt throw at him. It wouldn't have been difficult for Batman to take them down. Even his brothers would have been capable on their own. Bruce didn't laugh. Then again, that wasn't unusual for him. "You're my son," he finally responded, as if that explained everything, as if that were enough to explain away all of Jason's doubts. There was really only one explanation Jason could think of, one he'd rather not entertain for too long. The explanation that it was for his public image, for the family's, as it had been the last time Bruce had referred to him as his son. It would look terrible for the richest man in Gotham, probably the United States, to deny paying his son's ransom. Jason could almost imagine the headlines. Then there was the other option, that there wasn't anything more to it than a father saving a son. But Jason's head hurt too badly for him to consider that any longer. He didn't want to. And he had long stopped being Bruce's son. "So you keep saying," Jason answered finally, his voice more unsure than he would have liked. He didn't dare look back at Bruce, instead letting his gaze wander over the bed, settling on his hands and torn-up wrists. "They sent us a video, and we tried to figure out where you were, but there was a problem with the signal and the traffic cameras in the area weren't active." Bruce audibly exhaled, as though to steady himself. "We couldn't find you." The thought of Bruce worrying about him was painful for reasons Jason couldn't explain. Why did it make him this angry? He dug his nails into the palm of his hand before he could lash out. "Then we received a second message, that there had been a bomb set 2 hours ago, and—" Bruce trailed off, as though it hurt him to continue. "I still remember the last time you were waiting for me to save you." At that, Jason did look up, just in time to see a single lone tear make its way down Bruce's cheek. He didn't know why he was like this, but he knew that that urge to destroy every nice thing he had existed long before he came back. And so, Jason spoke with barely a second thought. "I didn't think you would come." In return, he got to watch the expression on Bruce's face turn to one of anguish. An expression of absolute heartbreak. He watched 1,000 emotions cross the man's face within a second. Jason didn't know whether it gave him pleasure or pain to know that he was the cause. "Jay, lad," Bruce began in that caring tone of his that meant he was about to explain why Jason was wrong, why Jason didn't understand the situation, why Jason didn't need an apology. Of course, Jason had to dig the knife in. It was what he did. It was all that he knew how to do. "I expected you to fail me again." The silence that followed was all-consuming. Like most things Jason said to his father, he found himself quickly regretting it. He didn't know why he said what he said, but Jason did know that he wasn't in the mood to deal with the fallout. Not right now. "I can't be here. I want to go home," Jason said, sitting up before he could see Bruce's reaction. Clearly a bad idea, considering the way his head began to spin the second he sat up and removed the monitor from his index. "Jason, lie back down," Bruce ordered, his voice exhausted as though dealing with a petulant child. The memory of his days as Robin only served to enrage Jason more. "I'm going." Whatever dizziness he'd felt sitting up was magnified by 20 once he actually stood, and Jason leaned forward to clutch at the bed frame. His pride would not survive him collapsing now. "Jason!" Bruce yelled. The mixture of anger and sadness in his tone made Jason pause. He wasn't used to seeing Bruce this emotional. At least, not about him. "I've apologized more times than I can count," Bruce began anew. "Well, you keep apologizing for the wrong fucking things," Jason interrupted before Bruce could get any further. He didn't need another apology for his death or another explanation of why the Joker still lived. Silence engulfed the room, only broken by Jason's angry gasps for breath. "What do you need me to apologize for, if not letting you die? Failing to save you? Because I will never forgive myself for that," Bruce asked, angry himself now. "I've forgiven you for that. I forgive you for letting me die," Jason spat out through gritted teeth, needing to get his point across once and for all. He couldn't keep having the same conversation. "Hell, I even understood that you didn't kill the Joker," he added with a bitter laugh. "Then why do you keep bringing it up?" Bruce asked, his voice switching so quickly from anger to sadness it gave Jason whiplash. And Jason, well, he didn't quite know how to answer that question, so he did what he did best. He deflected. "How long did it take you to find me? No. How long did it take you to realize I was even missing?" Jason asked, keeping his voice quiet this time, his anger carefully controlled for when he needed it. Jason asked, keeping his voice quiet this time, his anger carefully controlled for when he'd need it. "You're avoiding my question," Bruce answered. This time he at least had the decency to look sorry, to look guilty. "Good." "And you're avoiding mine," Jason echoed. A moment of silence, and then Jason raised his voice again. "How long?" "When we got the ransom video," Bruce answered, the sorry expression being overtaken by confusion. 6 days. The self-proclaimed world's greatest detective couldn't see where Jason was going with this. It's funny enough to make Jason laugh a bitter laugh that was terrible even to his own ears. Did he still have any of the drug left in his system? Maybe that's where his newfound courage came from. "So a week. It took you a fucking week to realize your son was missing?" Jason asked, and he sneered the word like it was an insult. It was to him. Bruce opened his mouth, probably to respond, to defend himself. Jason didn't give him the opportunity. "How long would it have been for Dick?" Jason finally asked, reaching his point. The reaction was instantaneous. Bruce's expression fell, the guilt clearly written across it. It felt good in a way Jason couldn't explain, and he finally uncurled his fingers from where they'd been grasping the frame. "Or Tim, or Damien?" he asked, just to drive his point home. Bruce stayed standing where he was, silent and poorly hiding the emotions he was going through. He said nothing to defend himself. Then again, how could he? Jason took a deep breath and sent a prayer that he had enough strength to get himself home, or at least find Alfred and beg him for a ride. "I think we're done here," he said when Bruce remained quiet. He'd already turned around when Bruce finally spoke. "No." To say the least, Jason was surprised. When he turned back around, there was a grim determination set on Bruce's face. "You're right. I would have noticed sooner if it were any of your brothers." That caught Jason off guard in a way he wasn't used to. He didn't get unnerved easily, but Bruce admitting that Jason was right? That was reason to be wary. "But that's your fault as much as mine. Ever since you came back, you've been pushing me away, and I've tried to give you space. I stopped asking about your personal life after you didn't answer the first 100 times. I stopped inviting you to family dinners when you didn't respond to a single invite. I kept myself and your brothers out of your territory. I don't interfere in your business, like you asked. You can't blame me for not being part of your life when all you do is tell me you don't want me in it." Bruce finished speaking, and he didn't yell. He was calm, collected, like he knew he was right. That what he said was reasonable. Jason could feel himself losing the high ground. Bruce wasn't entirely wrong. And now Jason had a whole lot of anger that he didn't know where to put. "And so this is my fault now? Like always. Is that easier for you to say than to simply admit you hate me and can't stand to see what I've become? That I'm your worst failure? Jason yelled back, his voice raised and posture tense as he waited for a response. This was familiar. This was good. His rage echoed across the room. Is that what you think I think of you? Is that what you want me to say? Bruce asked, sincerely asked, looking almost disappointed. And he was still not yelling. It made everything so much worse. You are my son, Jason. Whether you want to accept that or not, you will always be my son, Bruce continued. All Jason felt was the urge to scream, to tell his father what he thought of him, that he wasn't his son. He could feel his anger rising, boiling deep inside him until it was seething over. And I miss you. And just as quickly, his anger was gone. It felt as though he'd been hit in the chest, every emotion he'd been feeling beaten out of him, leaving him empty and confused. Bruce had to be lying to him. He had to be trying to deceive him, manipulate him, but for what purpose? To what end? You miss me, Jason echoed, his mind completely blank. It made him chuckle, anything to hide the tears that were forming in his eyes. You don't miss me. You miss who I used to be. When I didn't run around killing people, when I didn't question you, when I was a good soldier. He motioned to the memorial in the corner, the same memorial that haunted him every time he visited. Bruce couldn't miss him. He could barely tolerate Jason on their good days. If Bruce had been simply giving Jason the space Jason had asked for, if he had been missing Jason all this time, had been waiting for Jason to return home on his own accord, then that would mean that it was Jason's fault. All of it. Their fights, their arguments, their strained relationship. Was it all his fault? It couldn't be. Bruce treated him differently ever since Jason had come back. He didn't treat Jason as his son anymore. Not the way he had before Jason's death. A look of understanding slowly began to dawn on Bruce's face, and it only served to piss Jason off more, because he didn't understand whatever was happening right now. But he got the feeling that he'd lost whatever high ground he'd had. That he'd lost the argument they were having. I'm sorry, Bruce finally apologized. And Jason had no idea what for. I'm sorry that I ever made you feel that way. I think I understand it now. His voice, his expression, the open stance, it all appeared genuine. Well, you want to share with the fucking class? Jason asked, and he meant for himself to sound pissed off, angry. Not as broken and pathetic as he did. He wiped frantically at his eyes, hoping to hide his tears before Bruce noticed them. I love you. Jason swore his heart stopped for a beat. Don't get me wrong. I don't agree with your moral philosophy. I never will, but I understand it. I could never hate you. Even when you were at your worst, I still held out hope that my son would return to me. Jason could see his own hurt clearly reflected on Bruce's face. He could see his own tears mirrored. You were always more than just a good soldier. You have always been more than just a good soldier to me. He hadn't realized how badly he'd wanted to hear that. Jason didn't bother to hide his tears any longer, letting them flow freely as Bruce did. He couldn't remember the last time he'd allowed himself to cry in front of Bruce, just like he couldn't remember the last time Bruce had allowed himself to show this much emotion in front of Jason. I do miss that kid he used to be. The one that was full of hope, and that doesn't exist anymore because of my actions. Bruce continued, and it hurt. But Jason couldn't pretend that he didn't miss that kid as well. But I wouldn't risk anything in this world to lose you again. When you came back to Gotham, all I wanted was for you to come home. It's still all I want. But you're stubborn. You've always been, and you were so angry. I thought that if I give you space, if I didn't call, didn't ask, then you would come to me when you're ready. That you would come home when you were ready. I understand why you didn't. Bruce ended his apology. And Jason didn't know how to respond. He was truly overwhelmed by everything Bruce had said. All you did was criticize me, Jason finally settled on. Bruce's apology didn't erase everything that had happened between them, but his anger was gone. I know you don't approve of what I do, of my moral philosophy, or however you want to call it. I don't need you to. Jason took a deep breath before he continued. But did you have to be such a dick about it? It was a poor attempt to lighten the mood, but it worked anyway. Bruce gave him a sad smile as they waited for Jason to continue. Everything I did, you had something to complain about, that I was too brutal, too messy, too careless. It didn't feel like I was your son. It didn't even feel like we were on the same side. It was weird, to say the least. He didn't remember the last time he had been this honest and open with Bruce. Maybe directly after he'd come back, when he'd set Bruce the ultimatum. But even then, he'd been fueled by rage. He couldn't remember the last time he and Bruce had spoken this long, without interrupting another, without starting a screaming match, or without one of them storming off. Then again, Jason had tried to storm off. It was Bruce who hadn't let him. Maybe Jason just couldn't remember the last time his father had fought for him instead of against him. It still feels like that. Every time you ask about a mission, and immediately there's a warning in your voice, a threat. You can call me a son all you like, but it's clear you don't trust me the way you do the others. Jason stopped when he had nothing left to say. Bruce looked hurt, truly hurt, like Jason's words had physically pained him to hear. For the first time in a while, the thought didn't make Jason feel any better. It didn't give him any kind of satisfaction, any kind of feeling of righteousness. All he felt was raw, vulnerable, like he'd laid all his cards out open on the table, like he'd taken his heart out of his chest and was offering it up to his father on a silver platter, simply awaiting his next move. It's not that I don't trust you. Just 15 minutes ago, Jason would have interrupted Bruce then and there, cut him off, or at the very least scoffed. Now he just let his father explain. I'm worried about you. I don't ask about your work to provoke you or pick fights. I ask because I need to know you're okay, that you're not putting yourself in unnecessary danger, Bruce said, sounding genuinely worried. He sounded almost scared, but what did Bruce have to be wary of? Maybe that Jason would take this the wrong way like every other thing Bruce had said to him since he'd come back. Maybe that Jason would take this the wrong way like every other time Bruce had asked him about his work. He didn't quite know what to do with his feelings, where to place them. He didn't know how to handle his father's concern when his anger had always been so much easier. We're vigilantes. Our entire job is unnecessary danger. Jason finally joked when he didn't know what else to say. Bruce cracked a smile at that, briefly, then he continued in the same genuine tone as before. I trust you to do the right thing, or, at the very least, not break my rules in Gotham. I know if I crossed the line you have crossed countless times by now, then I wouldn't be able to come back from it. Sometimes I worry that you're more similar to me than you think. So do I. Jason answered. He didn't even mean it as an insult this time. It seemed as though they'd finally come to a mutual understanding, almost a resolution. Maybe it was stupid to think that everything that had happened between them could be resolved in one conversation. Maybe too much had happened between them for the conflict to ever be resolved. Then again, maybe for tonight it would be enough to simply know that his father had loved him and was willing to fight for him. Will you please lay down? You can leave in the morning if you want to, but at least stay for the rest of the night, Bruce asked, and he sounded desperate. Fine, Jason responded, telling himself it was just because of how exhausted he was. Then again, he knew that about 10 minutes ago he would have rather collapsed on some street corner on his way home than stayed here with his father. But if I'm staying, I'm occupying the theater room. There was a beat of silence, and then Bruce laughed the way he used to when Jason refused to go to bed after patrol, because he had an essay to finish. Deal. Jason smiled at that. They'd finally met a compromise. Dick would be so proud of him. Jason took a deep breath before he pushed himself away from the bed frame, or rather, tried to push himself away. Then the wheeziness returned tenfold, and one thing was made painfully clear to him. There was no way he was getting up those stairs himself. Help me up, Jason said, and he spoke the words like an order, not the peace offer they actually were. He extended his arms towards Bruce, beckoning him forward. Bruce laughed. Well, not quite. He poorly tried to hide his laughter. Then he was at Jason's side, slinging his arm over his shoulder and wrapping one around Jason's waist, accepting his peace offering for what it was. Then Bruce was helping him upstairs. Slowly, one step at a time, and Jason was reminded of his time as Robin, of the few nights when he had overdone it, and Bruce would help him up to his bedroom rather than make him spend the night in the Batcave. Even then, Jason would try to convince his father to let him watch one more movie before he was sent off to bed, and Bruce had let him succeed every time. At least, considering everything that had gone down between the two of them, that hadn't changed. Maybe it wouldn't be too far of a stretch to hope that it could be like that again. Alright guys, and that is the end of Revive Publicly by Orphan Account. I hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you next video.